In a grandiose universe, countless stars shine through vast and colorful cosmic clouds, but within this expanse lies an endless void, where a bright explosion of energy pierces the deep darkness. This universe is home to every imaginable being, from powerful sorcerers and parkas to advanced robots and dragons. Among the countless worlds, there is a desolate and burning planet that can only be described as a hell. This place houses the worst prison in history, a huge high-security fortress designed for containment, known as La Soledad. It houses the most fearsome and dangerous criminals in the entire cosmos. Inside one of its cells, a small scorpion-like creature scurries across the cold metal floor. A big hand suddenly swoops down and snatches the little creature, lifting it off the ground. The hand belongs to a prisoner with long white hair, who sits alone in the desolation of his cell. The blindfolded man calmly carries the creature to his mouth, treating it as a simple meal. He chews it for a moment, just noticing its bitter taste with a stoic expression. The prisoner sits quietly in his containment unit, illuminated only by a dim light from above. Then he sits in a cross position, maintaining his serene composure in the silent cell. Suddenly, a bright light cuts through the darkness as a slot in the huge door is illuminated. The heavy door opens, flooding the small room with a bright light full of particles. A guard waits while the prisoner floats by wondering if it's been a month already. The guard takes him out of the cell and introduces him into a vast and deep pit full of machinery. The blindfolded man stands silently next to the armored guard, ready to be escorted. Both look up at the imposing complex walls of the high-tech prison. The interior of the prison is a dizzying maze of floating platforms and advanced structures. A long floating staircase materializes, creating a way up through the vast mechanical abyss. The blindfolded prisoner climbs the shiny steps with a steady step. The guard closely follows. The guard can't believe it. It seems strange to him that a prisoner is opening paths without any guidance. He recalls that his superiors advised him to simply accept the strange behavior of this prisoner and not resist. After all, the structure of the prison changes every month, which makes any attempt to predict the layout useless. This leaves the guard completely baffled as to how the old man could possibly know the right way. He watches the prisoners' backs with a mixture of suspicion and amazement, unable to comprehend the situation. The prisoner turns around and casually tells the guard to be careful on his way back, while the guard simply tells him to come in. Once the transfer is completed, the guard informs his superiors and requests their current coordinates. The white-haired man named Kuno finds himself in a huge room filled with countless prisoners. He calmly examines the large area, estimating that its size is approximately 1,650 square meters. Immediately, a group of inmates notices the newcomer, pointing out that he looks like an old man. Another tougher-looking group smiles, thinking they won't need to use any flashy moves on him. The other inmates are relieved to think that he is just an ordinary old man and not another weirdo. This section of the prison known as Soledad houses the lowest-level inmates, who are classified by classes. He gasps for air, feeling that all the inmates around him are second-class at best. He kneels on the ground, while a robotic figure walks past him, taking in the atmosphere of the place. However, he detects a special set in the crowd, something that catches his attention. Just then, a bright light descends from above, and all the prisoners start shouting about the arrival of food. The old man watches the unfolding scene in silence, wondering when was the last time he had a real meal. The inmates look at the descending food with hungry eyes, muttering that this time it is real food. They gather around a large steaming cauldron in the hope that something edible will finally arrive. One prisoner complains as he realizes it's crazy porridge again, but another tells him to eat it or starve to death. The man with the scar rushes anyway, determined to get at least one bite of the disgusting food. However, a huge pig-shaped prisoner named Tommy gets in his way by declaring that he eats first. The other prisoners complain under their breath, wondering how long the stronger inmates will finish all the food. While Tammy and her group eat, the rest can only hope that they have a few plays left. Nearby, a small boy tells his older companion that he is hungry, and the young man tells him to wait. A different group complains about the horrible taste, but agrees that it's still better than nothing. The muscular young man observes the strongest inmates with a serious expression, with his gaze fixed on them. Just then, Kun starts walking towards the food, but one of the thugs tells the old man to stop. The blindfolded man calmly declares that he just wants a plate, asking for a little respect for the elderly. A big man with a mustache confronts him, asking if he doesn't know the rules to get food. Look at the old man questioning if you are on thread, just trying to cause trouble. When he manages to walk, the man grabs him by the shoulder, angrily asking if he is even listening to him. The thug calls him a bandaged weirdo as a strange aura begins to radiate from the old prisoner. He teases by asking how a blind man could have smelled his way to the food. In an instant, Kun moves with incredible speed, his form becoming blurred to everyone watching. The big bully is suddenly sent flying backwards, screaming in agony out of his eyes. The blindfolded man had struck him with surgical precision, disabling him with a single swift movement. Kuna warns the others not to touch his eyes as the injured thug falls, defeated and bleeding. The muscular young man and the little boy watch in complete shock at the old man's sudden display of power. In Koso, Tommy, the pig-shaped brute, stops eating and is shocked by the newcomer's skill and rage. Tommy orders his gang to bring the old man to him to take care of him personally. Kun stands upright and sniffs the air again, undisturbed by the growing crowd of hostile inmates. Meanwhile, in a control room, a high-ranking officer asks a guard what the old man just did. The guard reveals that the prisoner had just endured 30 days of solitary confinement, the harshest penalty. The officer seems unimpressed, pointing out that hundreds of inmates die every day in the prison. He then explains that a single cell in the facility can hold several hundred people at a time. As he speaks, he signs a document implying that the old man is much more dangerous than he seems. It is revealed that Khan had killed each and every inmate in his previous cell with his bare hands. Back in the common area, the prisoners are in an uproar surrounding the blindfolded man with guns. Khan dodges and effortlessly makes his way between his attackers, countering their blows with deadly precision. He moves like a whirlwind of destruction, knocking down his opponents with a hidden blade. Back at the office, the commander explains that, although it seems incredible, the report is 100% true. In just one night, the old man had killed a total of 241 people, leaving no survivors. The other inmates can only stare in horror. Unable to comprehend the old man's true strength, the commander goes on to add another interesting fact about the prisoner known as Kun. He reminds the guard that every solitary inmate is given a serial number upon entry. With a sinister smile, he asks if the guard remembers what that old man's specific number is. The guard remembers his interaction with the prisoner, remembering him only as the number 51. The commander smiles, telling the guard that, although he is new, the intern is famous. The old man, whose real name is Arjo Lusties, towers over the defeated pigman Tommy. All the other interns can only stare in absolute shock, unable to comprehend what just happened. They mumble to each other, wondering how a seemingly frail old man could do all that. Arjo calmly sniffs the air, while Tommy, beaten and bloodied, kneels before him, completely defeated. The muscular young man sweats, still trying to figure out the real identity of the mysterious old man. With a threatening red aura, Arjo's presence fills the hallway, and a little boy realizes that he is here. The boy looks with wide and terrified eyes, understanding the danger that this man represents. Splashes of blood cross the old warrior's face, but his expression remains completely illegible. Dozens of inmates lie on the ground completely annihilated without putting up a real fight. Viewers find it amazing that they were all knocked down by one person. However, the crowd soon realizes that all the defeated prisoners are still moaning in pain. Tommy Britt is shocked to realize that not a single one of his men is actually dead. He looks at the mysterious figure, completely humiliated, and wondering who this old man is. Arjel asks if they really believe that having more people automatically equals strength. He goes on to say that while the numbers may work on some, they mean nothing when everyone is so weak. The old warrior then coldly informs Tammy that she probably only has a month or two to live. He then raises his single spiral blade, presenting the defeated brute with an offer. Algiers tells him that if he wishes to die before that, he should come and get him. After the fight, the inmates line up on the cold run, their shadows cast long on the rocky ground. Arjel picks up a plate of the purple porridge, noting that he did not even receive this in solitary confinement. He walks away with his food. His imposing figure makes the other prisoners instinctively separate. Everyone eats their portion, and the muscular young man watches Arjel from a safe distance. The young man thinks about the harsh reality of loneliness, a place where most prisoners do not survive. The prison employs various systems designed to torment the inmates, which makes survival even more difficult. Because of these brutal conditions, anyone who manages to survive is someone to be distrusted. The young man knows that he should be careful with everyone, especially the mysterious and powerful old man. He remembers Arjel's movements during the fight, recognizing that they were anything but ordinary. The boy Ciro complains about the unpleasant taste, while his partner decides that they should stay away from Algiers. Suddenly, the old warrior appears right behind them, startling the muscular young man. The young man grabs acid and jumps up in a panic, wondering how the old man got there so fast. Arjel sniffs the air again, his attention clearly focused on the two of them, particularly the boy. The old warrior has detected a special scent, something he has noticed since he arrived. He turns his attention to Cyrus, his blindfolded gaze fixed on the red-eyed young man. Arjel reveals that the boy has a very special blood that explains the unique scent he detected. The muscular young man becomes enraged, demanding to know what the old man is talking about. Arjel simply replies that instinct is the only thing that gets better when you get as old as he is. The young man clenches his teeth, his anger and protection towards Cyrus ignites. The Jetson in a wide Arjel if he tells anyone, his body glowing with a fierce red aura. Arjel calmly states that revealing the secret would not benefit him, admitting that he only found it entertaining. The young man decides to leave, telling Ciro that it's time to leave, and the boy nods in silence. He puts a protective arm around Ciro as they walk away, leaving the old warrior behind. The other inmates watch the interaction, still cautious and confused by the recent events. Suddenly, a massive column of golden light bursts out from the ground, drawing everyone's attention. An inmate comments that the quarry prisoners must be returning as the light intensifies. A group of large and formidable beastmen emerge from the bright light, looking exhausted. A rhino beastman named Menrock complains about how tired he is after a long day at work. His companion, a bald eagle beastman named Oruk, quickly agrees with his sentiment. A third member of their group, a werewolf named Gork, remains silent with a stern expression. The group then notices the blood splattered all over the floor, wondering what happened while they were out. Oruk bends down, noticing the large amount of blood, and questioning the sudden chaos after a quiet month. Menrock becomes enraged, screaming about working all day, and demanding to know who made the mess. He furiously orders whoever is responsible to show himself, while the other prisoners nervously watch. Algiers comes forward from the crowd, calmly admitting that he caused the commotion, and asking if there is a problem. The beastmen are surprised to see an old man, and one mockingly asks if he did all this alone. Menrock dismisses him as a crazy old man talking nonsense, clearly underestimating him. The blindfolded warrior stares at the rhinoceros beastman, his expression firm and uncompromising. Menrock loses patience, stating that he has no time for jokes, and moves to attack Arjel. However, Auric watches with wide eyes, feeling an immense danger radiating from the old man. Arjel remains completely still, his calm demeanor creating an unsettling tension in the air. Horror moves quickly to stop his partner, yelling at Menrock not to attack the old man. The rhinoceros beastman sweats, confused and intimidated by the powerful aura emanating from a mere old man. The eagle beastman plays with Arjel, promising that they will not harm him if he leaves them alone. Arjel agrees, stating that it has nothing to do with them, as long as they don't start anything. He then turns around and walks away, hoping he can finally live in peace, while the beastmen watch him leave. He now swallows saliva, sweating profusely, with a mixture of fear and relief, after the tense confrontation. Suddenly, a large glowing holographic symbol appears in the air, pointing to an advertisement throughout the prison. A voice from the system declares that bedtime is starting, and orders all prisoners to lie on their backs. This is the anti-support system, one of the 4 control methods used in Solitude, applied by their collars. The collars activate, increasing the gravity and forcing each inmate to lie face down on the floor. Any attempt to resist or rise up against the force results in a deadly electric shock called a spark. The prisoners sigh with resignation, knowing that they have no choice but to lie down until morning. An intern complains of total control, while a strange little sprout runs across the floor. The strange multi-eyed creature appears to be some kind of parasite crawling on the veins of an inmate. As they lie on the floor, Manhwa calls out to his partner, breaking the forced silence. He asks Auric why he stopped him earlier, admitting that he didn't think the old man looked so strong. The Eagle Beastman explains that he saw something, leaving his friend confused as they lay among the others. With a look of pure terror, Auric reveals that he managed to see the old man's prisoner number. He confirms that it was number 51, causing Manhwa to react with complete surprise and disbelief. Manhwa is stunned, wondering how long the old man could have been imprisoned to have such a low number. Auric speculates that the old warrior has probably been there since the very foundation of the prison. He notes that the number was not marked with a class designation like the other inmates. It was just a simple number without any classification, a sign of his unique status in the prison. Auric concludes that it is better to avoid someone who survived in Solitude for decades, but Manhwa worries. The Rhino Beastman slaps the ground in frustration, arguing that the old man might hold a grudge. Suddenly, a strange noise catches their attention, and both beastmen look up in alarm. Screams fill the air as the zombie-like inmates start viciously attacking others around them. While being immobilized on the ground by the gravity system, Manhwa asks what is happening. The Eagle Beastman looks on with wide eyes, identifying the terrifying creatures as zombies. Elsewhere, Argel is lying on the ground, simply complaining that the chaotic screams are too loud. The helpless inmates are invaded and bitten, their bodies being torn apart by the horde of undead. Annoyed, Argel wonders if the bud room was open while he was in solitary confinement. Electricity crackles around his bindings as he clenches his fists fighting the system. He forces himself to sit down despite the intense electric shocks. Surrounded by approaching zombies, the old warrior slowly gets to his feet, saying that he is wide awake now, as a lightning bolt runs through him. Cyrus and his companion observe with complete amazement the man's incredible demonstration of power. The young man fights against the gravity system, surprised by the sudden appearance of the zombies. He urgently tells Ciro to crawl to a nearby rock to be safe, but the boy hesitates out of fear. Overcoming the pain, the young man forces himself to get up, enduring the shocks, to protect his young friend. With a determined growl, the young man prepares to fight by challenging the zombies to approach. His body transforms, growing bigger and wilder as he curses the approaching undead horde. Jump into the fray, bending over to finish off each of the zombies the same. The young warrior goes through the undead, crushing skulls with his new strength and ferocity. The beastmen are also under attack, fighting to defend themselves against the zombies en masse. Manhwa creaks with frustration, fighting the undead as he continues to be overtaken by the anti-estim system. Auric desperately fights against the endless waves, realizing that his numbers keep growing. As beastmen, they can resist the system to some extent, but the weakest prisoners are the real problem. Auric knows that eventually, all the weaker inmates will turn into more zombies. Manhwa questions why zombies aren't affected, and Auric suggests that the system doesn't work on the dead. At that moment, an even larger horde of zombies begins to charge towards them from the darkness. The beastmen look on in horror as another wave of the undead rushes to join the fight. The zombies are relentless, their grotesque faces contorting into hunger and mindless aggression. Manhwa curses, realizing that his stamina is almost gone due to the constant electric shocks. Auric suggests that they lean against a rock to conserve energy and maintain their position. The ankle restraints continue to spark with electricity, draining the strength from every living inmate. Suddenly, Argel jumps into the air, surrounded by a maelstrom of crackling blue energy. Descend on the horde like lightning, landing right in the middle of the swarm of zombies. The old warrior moves with blinding speed, slashing the undead with ruthless efficiency. The beastmen can only stare in amazement. Once again amazed by the incredible power of the old man, Algiers finds himself in the middle of the fallen zombies, leaving the remaining resources completely speechless. He casually remarks that at least they weren't defeated by the vampire zombies themselves. The beastmen sit on the floor exhausted, and still crackling with electricity from the system. Auric asks the old man why he helped them, and Argel simply replies that he didn't want to bother. The Eagle Beastman understands by realizing that beastmen are much stronger than normal people. If they had turned into zombies, it would have been a big problem to deal with them, so Argel intervened. At that moment, they noticed that their companion Gork, the werewolf, had turned into a zombie. Menrock panics, screaming at Argel that the newly turned zombie is a powerful beastman. Argel calmly confronts the zombified Gork, commenting that it's been a while since he last fought a werewolf. Without hesitation, the old warrior attacks by plunging his sword deep into the zombie's chest. The zombified werewolf recoils in pain, but quickly strikes back with a ferocious attack. Argel easily dodges without being impressed by his strength and noticing his fast reaction speed. Auric watches in disbelief, amazed that the old man can fight so effectively. Gork lets out a furious roar and lunges at Argel with his huge fist, ready to crush him. The old warrior moves with an impossible grace, effortlessly dodging each of the attacks of the zombies. His feet seem to float on the ground, their movements completely unrestricted by the system. Argel makes his way through the wolfman's flurry of punches without being slowed down in the slightest. Auric is completely bewildered, wondering how the blind man can move like that without even looking. The zombified werewolf suddenly transforms his power by growing several times stronger. He takes the form of a massive monstrous wolf dog, specifically a ferocious Doberman. Algiers calls the werewolf a fool, claiming that simply becoming a beastman changes nothing. It effortlessly stops the creature's attack, its movements fluid and precise. The old warrior approaches, preparing to deal a decisive blow against the transformed zombie. He launches a powerful kick, sending the massive dog reeling backwards from the impact. Argel explains that increasing the volume only creates more openings, a lesson he is about to demonstrate. He moves with lightning speed, hitting the dog with a devastating attack that ends the fight. Auric's instincts scream at him, telling him that in order to survive in Solitude, he must follow that man. Watch as Argel stands victorious over the fallen wolf beast, surrounded by crackling energy. Argel turns his attention to the young man, noticing that he is still defending himself against the zombies. The defeated wolf beast weakly calls for help as he lies on the ground, his life fading away. Menrock desperately screams at the old man, asking him where he's going as he turns to leave. Argel simply walks away, leaving the zombies, beastmen, and the remaining inmates to fend for themselves. The young warrior fights to protect Cyrus by cursing as the zombies continue their relentless assault. The child pinned to the ground points and shouts that the old man is fighting there. The young man looks up, his eyes widen in surprise at the incredible sight before him. Argel is fighting alone against the whole horde of zombies, a whirlwind of death and destruction. The young man looks on in disbelief as one of his arms begins to mutate, becoming dark and monstrous. Argel continues his assault by effortlessly slashing the undead with his sword. Deadly. The young man is stunned to realize that the old man has also finished off that whole horde of zombies. He can only look at the consequences, wondering who the hell that mysterious old man could be. A holographic message appears announcing that all inmates must get up. The prison system declares the start of the morning roll call. The results are grim, as the ground is littered with the bodies of the fallen. Out of 94 inmates, 80 are dead, and Algiers is sitting quietly on a rock. There are only 14 survivors left. A small battered group of stones the massacre. The system identifies its location as cell block 1257. At that moment, new prisoners begin to arrive. Looking around the gloomy prison, a glowing portal is activated, indicating that the population of the cell block will be replenished. The newcomers look nervous as they assimilate the oppressive atmosphere of their new home. One of them wonders aloud what kind of place Soleto prison really is. Her confusion turns to horror as she notices the smell and sees the corpses. Meanwhile, the survivors are too exhausted to even pay attention to the newcomers. The few remaining inmates quietly return to their own places in the Great Hall. The morning roll call ends in a heavy hollow silence that fills the entire area. It is revealed that the cause of the outbreak is an empirical zombie flea, whose bite is fatal. Argel declares that since all the zombies are gone, it should be safe now. He touches his bandage, with a thoughtful expression on his face. The old warrior then gets up, and begins to walk away from his resting place. The other inmates watch in shock, wondering what the old man is doing. They are surprised to see him heading towards an exit as if the door was unlocked for him. Aurico warns the newcomers that if they want to die, they should follow the old man. He explains that everyone who has crossed that door has never returned. The floor outside the cell block is littered with the bones of those who tried to escape. The Eagle Beastman somberly declares that something of a mind lurks in the corridors of the prison. He believes that a creature capable of wiping them all out is waiting right behind the door. Argel walks down the dark hallway seemingly unconcerned by the possible dangers. He feels that something beyond imagination is waiting for him out there. A small goblin-like creature, carrying a large sack, then appears before the old warrior. The creature greets him as a teacher, and Argel says that he was waiting for him after hearing the noise. The bandaged man agrees that it's been a long time since they last saw each other. He then addresses the little creature by his name, Jacob. Algiers asks if a guard told him he was here, and Jacob confirms that he paid 5 gold coins for the information. Jacob complains about the greedy guard, but says that the price was small to see his master again. Algiers cuts the conversation short by asking if Jacob is here for the business. The goblin puts a serious look in his eyes, mentioning that he is sure Algiers has heard the news. Then he asks about the change that happened before yesterday. Jacob unrolls a large scroll, asking the old man to draw the new map for him. It is shown that the change is a massive reorganization of the prison structure. Due to these constant changes, memorizing any path through the prison is almost impossible. Jacob thinks to himself that Argel's ability to sense the new design is really crazy. After a few moments, Argel announces that the map is finished, and Jacob enthusiastically thanks him. The elf then offers to take out anything the old man needs from his magic bag. Argel thinks for a moment and asks if his partner has real food. Jacob takes out a large portion of cooked meat, admitting that he is ashamed to exchange it for such a valuable map. Then he tells the old warrior that he has juicy information for him. Jacob reveals that a summoning is supposed to take place today in all the lower cell blocks. The two sit opposite each other while the old man gets ready to eat. Argel thanks him for the information, admitting that he can never predict when such events will occur. The elf then nervously asks if those guys have been causing any problems lately. It refers to a mysterious hooded group that operates under a strange red symbol. Argel assures him that he has been calm and tells him not to worry, so Jacob apologizes for going overboard. With his business concluded, the elf smiles and says that he will now say goodbye. Jacob leans over and wishes him a safe return, and the old warrior tells him to be careful too. Algiers returns to his cell block, placing a hand on the rusty sign by the door. In a low voice, he says the name Khan, which seems to be written on the plaque. The old man realizes that Jacob must have been talking about the warden who placed him in the specific cell. He thinks it could have been for the best, as his health is improving, and he plans to get his reward. Back in the common area, some inmates suddenly start sniffing the air, noticing a new smell. One of them screams excitedly, realizing that it is the smell of meat, and demands to know where it comes from. The prisoners quickly spot Argel with his bag of food, surprised to see real meat instead of maggot waste. Some of the hungry inmates immediately rush to get food, but are sent flying backwards by a powerful explosion. Auric steps forward, protecting him and warning the others not to lay a finger on the old man. Menrock creaks angrily, asking which one of them he should hit first, and the inmates recognize him as a beastman. The other prisoners quickly retreat, leaving Argel and his small group of allies alone. The old warrior turns to the Eagle Beastman, who corrects him on the correct pronunciation of his name. Everyone looks at the big pile of steaming cooked ribs, a rare sight in prison. Menrock drools, asking the teacher how he managed to get such a delicious meal. Ciro's eyes light up with hunger and excitement, catching his companion by surprise. Arjul dismisses the question by simply telling everyone to eat before the food gets cold. After they finish eating, Auric thanks the old warrior for the food and for his help the day before. The blindfolded man tells her that there is nothing to be grateful for. His expression becomes gloomy. He explains that in a place like this, even being alive can eventually become a curse. However, he admits that he could still feel their desperation when they were fighting for their lives. He sits before them, declaring that he wants to ask them something about how to survive in this hellish place. He then asks the small group of survivors if they really want to get out of Salton alive. Monrock immediately replies that of course she does, explaining that it's a natural survival instinct. Arjul then poses a difficult question, asking if they would still follow that instinct if he begged them to die. He explains that this is what isolation does and asks them again if they really want to live. The beastman Rhino clenches his fist, declaring that he is not going to die senselessly in a place like this. With a look of determination, he also states that he wants to live. Ciro adds that he wants to survive so that he can return home and see his father again. Arjul sits in front of them with an illegible expression as he processes his resolution. The old warrior thinks about his own 66-year-old promise that he is determined to fulfill. He knows his time is running out, and having more allies will only increase his chances of success. Having made up his mind, the old man tells the small group to prepare for what is coming. He then reveals that there is going to be an invocation sometime today. Meanwhile, other inmates are tasked with the grim job of removing the bodies. One complains about the horrible task, but the other reminds him that it is necessary to prevent diseases. They sadly conclude that their only crime in this place is to be weak. The two look with horror and disgust at the large number of dead bodies they have to move. A huge pile of bodies serves as a grim reminder of why isolation is called the worst prison in the universe. One mentions a rumor that an old man once killed everyone, but his friend dismisses it as a lie. Suddenly, a bright light appears, and they see something coming out of it. Strange and grotesque stone-faced creatures emerge, drooling and licking their lips. The nearby prisoners look on in absolute terror, wondering what these new monsters are. The creatures begin to advance, causing the inmates to panic and flee. Screaming, Auric nervously asks Arjul if these are the beasts of the summit he was talking about. The old warrior sits quietly on his rock and tells his new ally not to worry. He explains that these creatures are just janitors here to clean the cells. An inmate, feeling relieved, kicks one of the creatures, calling it disgusting for scaring them. Arjula adds that if they are attacked, the creatures will get angry, and the inmate gets blown away by an explosion. The old warrior then turns to Auric and asks about the thing he had asked him before. The eagle beastman confirms that he took care of himself, of everything, and is even doing extra work just in case. Arjul is satisfied with the response and tells his new allies that it's time to go back and get ready. Elsewhere, the two inmates in charge of cleaning are still walking around, feeling sick from their grim duty. One calls the other a drama queen, but his friend explains that he has seen dead bodies, but he has never seen them rot. His partner tells him to put up with it, but the other inmate suddenly stops, his eyes wide from the shock. In the distance, another much larger invocation begins to envelop the area in a huge pillar of fire. A monstrous two-headed lizard emerges from the flames, leaving the inmates completely stunned. Someone screams in terror as they realize the creature is a deadly fire-breathing dragon. The prisoners look on in disbelief, wondering what kind of monster has been summoned in their cell block. The two-headed dragon looms menacingly. His presence fills the entire hall with dread. Flames begin to gather in the creature's mouth, signaling an imminent and devastating attack. The inmates are paralyzed with fear, their eyes wide with terror, as they watch the beast prepare its assault. A huge fireball erupts from his mouth, instantly engulfing one of the prisoners in a fiery explosion. The place breaks its paralysis, and the remaining inmates start screaming and running for their lives. The dragon continues his attack by raining down a relentless firestorm from above. The cell block descends into chaos as the prisoners desperately try to escape the spreading inferno. The fire assault is devastating, and one inmate notes that half of the prisoners in one area burned to death. Auric watches the destruction with horror and asks Algiers if this is the invocation he was talking about. Algiers curses, realizing that they summoned the worst possible monster. Remember Jacob's warning that the monster being summoned was the cursed fire-breathing dragon. Menrock complains about the intense heat, wondering if they can even bring the beast down. The old warrior assures them that the setup they prepared will do its job very well. He then tells them that if they follow his instructions, they will not die, and warns that the dragon is coming. The huge creature crashes to the ground, its burning body sending sparks flying everywhere. Arjel gives his first order, telling everyone to remember what he is about to say. He explains that a second after he opens his mouth, he unleashes a 10-meter jet of fire. The old warrior instructs them to stand immediately behind a rock when they see the dragon. The group quickly takes cover when a huge explosion of fire erupts from the creature's mouth. The young man holds Cyrus protectively, watching the dragon's every move. They realize that their preparations to gather stones and build a shield against the flames have paid off. Menrock complains by asking the old man to let them know next time. The beastman Rhino then yells at Auric to switch with him, but the eagle beastman refuses. Cyrus brings the beastman Eagle a small container with water that he picked up, and Auric thanks him. The old warrior tells him to mix it with dirt and to throw the mud at the dragon when he is distracted. Menrock prepares a big pile of rocks ready to throw at the beast. Arjel explains that even a fire-breathing dragon still needs to breathe like any other creature. He reveals that this particular dragon actually breathes through his skin. The mud covers the dragon's body, causing it to suffocate and freeze in place without being able to see. Arjel walks towards the immobilized dragon, his sword glowing with a menacing red light. Unleash a flurry of attacks, tearing the huge creature apart in a bloody display of power. The old warrior reflects that in order to survive in isolation, one must become a monster. The remaining prisoners look on in shock as the fighting finally stops, wondering if it's over. They can hardly believe that they managed to bring down such a powerful beast. The group of survivors is on the dragon's corpse. Their teamwork has paid off. Cyrus looks at his companion with a surprised and confused expression on his face. Arjel comments that everyone was ready to face death, but the danger is not over yet. To their horror, another invocation begins, and the inmates scream in despair. Arjel remains calm, stating that he is also speaking from his gut and is ready for what's next. This time, more than 10 fire-spitting dragons are summoned, filling the hallway with a glow of fire. The group watches in terror, wondering if they can possibly survive against such overwhelming odds. The dragons let out a deafening roar, their collective power shaking the entire cell block. Arjel turns to face the new threat, his expression grim as he assesses the situation. The real problem is that the dragons have cut off their escape, trapping them in a sea of fire. The old warrior calmly says no, stating that it would be impossible to keep them all alive this time. Auric questions his teacher's decision, knowing that things could be even worse in the halls. Menrock panics, screaming that it's more dangerous outside and questioning the plan. The eagle beastman tells his friend to calm down, reminding him that the safest place is next to the old man. As he speaks, one of the dragons lunges forward, its huge head on the rhinoceros beastman. Just as the dragon attacks, Arjel growls, preparing to intervene. He jumps through the air with incredible speed, his body blurred against the fiery backdrop. The old warrior deals a powerful blow, saving Menrock from the dragon's attack at the last second. Arjel turns to the stunned rhinoceros beastman, reminding him that he did not want to die senselessly. He then orders everyone to move, telling them that they have no time to waste while leading the way. The small group quickly follows him into the dark and bright hallway. Auric sweats nervously, unable to see clearly, and realizing that this is the dangerous corridor he heard about. The old warrior warns everyone to stay alert, as they might run into other prisoners out here. He explains that a third or fourth-class prisoner could kill them in the blink of an eye. The eagle beastman offers to cover the rear and watch their backs using his overhead view. Arjel agrees, but sternly warns him never to leave the group for any reason. As Auric follows him from behind, his sixth sense tells him that something far away is watching him. He begins to wonder if they are really safe in this dark and foreboding corridor. The eagle beastman's senses scream at him, confirming that there is definitely something else in the hallway. He calls his master, suggesting that they should return to the relative safety of the cell. A look of pure terror spreads across Auric's face as he stares into the darkness. In the distance, a tall, slender figure appears, a single ray of red light shining from his eye. Menrock panics, screaming for Auric as the rest of the group continues down the hallway. Argel tells him to shut up, warning that shouting will only attract more danger. The old warrior calmly explains that among the dangers, there are ghost-like beings who can change their position freely. The rhinoceros beastman sweats, bewildered by the idea of facing two real ghosts. The old man clarifies that anything one can imagine exists in this dangerous corridor. Mendrock is divided, unable not to believe what he saw, but still worried about finding his friend. Arju reassures him that there is no need to worry about finding a simple sparrow, even if it is a bald eagle. Meanwhile, Korik finds himself alone in a seemingly endless hallway. This mysterious place was built by great magicians and genius architects to make it inescapable. He can hardly believe that he was left behind in such a dangerous and confusing place. The eagle beastman suddenly feels something approaching and prepares for a fight. A massive muscular figure charges towards him, his steps shaking the ground. Auric looks with horror at the approaching beast, his eyes wide with fear. He realizes with a jolt of terror that the creature charging at him is an ogre. The huge beast swings his club, and the eagle beastman barely manages to dodge the attack. He knows he has to stay alert if he wants to survive this encounter. The ogre unleashes a powerful blow on the ground, but Auric jumps into the air to avoid the shockwave. Sao flying by the force of the attack, crashing hard into the hallway wall. The eagle beastman knows that he cannot face such a powerful creature alone. His survival instincts kick in by yelling at him to run away as fast as he can. Just as Auric is about to run away, he is surrounded by two more ogres. He curses his bad luck. His feathers are ruffled as he prepares for a desperate fight. The eagle beastman knows that the moment he is caught, he will be torn to pieces. He is forced to dodge a relentless barrage of attacks from the three massive beasts. With a cry of despair, he jumps into the air, determined not to die in this place. However, one of the ogres manages to grab him. His huge hand closes around his body. As the beast prepares to eat him, Auric wonders if his life is about to end so senselessly. Suddenly, a new figure appears and deals a powerful blow to the ogre's head. He is a pig-like beastman who has arrived just in time to save the eagle beastman. He lands gracefully, ready to face the remaining ogres himself. Gold, who is stunned, completely bewildered by this unexpected turn of events. The newcomer explains that with a bold attack, they have successfully taken the initiative. He then gets down to business by announcing himself as the Becky player and getting ready to fight. The pig-like warrior unleashes a flurry of attacks, shouting baseball terms as he fights. He moves with surprising speed and agility, facing the huge beasts with his faithful bat. After a short but intense battle, he prepares to strike the final blow. He lands a devastating uppercut, knocking the ogre's head off with one hit in a double play. Auric is speechless, amazed that two ogres have been defeated so easily. Player Becky then hits a two-run home run, finishing off the last ogre in style. He then celebrates his victory by enjoying the fruits of his labor while eating the fallen ogre. Auric stares at his savior, his mind spinning from the sudden turn of events. He recognizes the number 4 on the pigman's clothes, identifying him as a level 4 prisoner. Realizing he has no other choice, the eagle beastman pleads for the stranger's help. The pigman asks him what his problem is, and Auric pleads for his life in despair for not dying. Becky is having fun, but suddenly she sniffs the air, and her expression changes. He grabs Auric, demanding to know who he is and why he smells the blind old man. The pig man's behavior becomes threatening as he demands an answer, and Auric nervously mentions Lord Arjo. Just then, 2 more figures appear, and one of them calls Becky. The eagle beastman is stunned, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and confusion. The newcomer scolds Becky for running away on her own, reminding her how many times she's been told that He then reveals that he knows Becky caught the ogres, seeing it as a blessing from the gods. The group is amazed that they managed to catch such dangerous creatures. Auric and Becky are confronted by a group of 4 powerful level 4 prisoners. The Eagle Beastman is terrified after realizing that he was much safer in the cell. A fierce battle rages in the hallway, the clash of the powerful inmates echoing throughout the prison. Arjula seems to have finally reached his destination. He tells everyone to stop, and Menrock asks if he has found Auric. The old warrior tells them to come closer and look towards the area below. The group stares in amazement at the scene unfolding before them. A massive spider-like monster is feasting on the corpses of fallen inmates, and Auric is among them. Arjul explains that the monster is strong enough to easily kill a level 5 prisoner. He reveals that all the ghosts in the corridor have names, and this one is called Decapitation. The old warrior confirms his grim expression as he watches the creature below. He explains that it is so called because its main method of killing is to cut off heads. The monster's menacing multi-eyed face and sharp fangs fill the group with fear. Arjun warns them to be careful as there is no longer a safe zone now that they have seen him. He tells them that they were lucky not to be seen, as they would all have been killed. The old warrior asks if they are afraid, and Menrock admits that the hallway is not a good place for a walk. When Algier suggests turning around, the beastman laughs and does not refuse, unwilling to leave his friend behind. The old man is pleased with his answer and tells him to keep looking for his friend. The young man asks if they can really find him, and Algiers assures him not to worry. Elsewhere, Becky violently interrogates Auric, demanding to know his connection to the old man. One of the other level 4 prisoners asks what happens when he notices the commotion. Becky explains that she smelled that old man on the stranger, confirming her suspicions. One of his companions, a zombie-like man named Arak, begins to panic as he realizes that he might die. The group leader tells Rock not to be afraid since the old man is not there. He then tells Becky that he just wants to have a little talk with the Eagle Beastman. The leader warns her not to go too far, and Becky complains about missing her chicken dinner. The red-haired woman of the group tells Auric not to be too afraid, as they are not able to harm him. He then reveals that in isolation, many are targeting a man named Arjul. The woman warns him that being with Arjul means getting involved with dangerous beings, a fate that dozens of lives could not bear. Carry. The Eagle Beastman sweats nervously, his eyes wide open, as he asks what kind of beings he is talking about. She describes them as monsters, so terrifying that you can't even look at them directly, warning him to be careful. The woman then begins to channel a powerful energy wrapping itself in a warm golden light. Auric is surprised when his wounds heal instantly. He explains that he also recited a prayer to ease her mind, and tells her to come back safe and sound. He wishes her the blessings of the constellations as his group drives away, and the Eagle Beastman thanks him for his help. With his strength restored, Auric discovers that he can move again, and begins the long road back to the darkness. After a while, she hears familiar footsteps in the distance, and her eyes fill with tears of overwhelming relief. He finally reunites with Menrock and the others, who are overjoyed. Be careful to see that he is still alive. The Rhinoceros Beastman thanks the old warrior profusely, and Auric bows his head in gratitude, confirming that he is now safe. Algiers asks if a level 4 prisoner treated him, and Auric says yes, adding that the person believed in the constellation of light, which relieves the old man. The young man hears the phrase Estrelas Eski and comments that it sounds familiar, and asks Ciro if he remembers what he was told. He explains that there are divine beings in the cosmos, such as the angelic constellation of light, and the demonic stars of the void of darkness. He adds that most of the followers, whether of the light or the dark, are fanatics who truly believe in a guaranteed afterlife. The young man concludes that even in a place like Solitude, the beliefs of the inmates are divided between different gods. Cirrus realizes that Auric met one of them, while Arjul points out that the Eagle Beastman has growth potential after surviving the dangerous corridor. While Menrock thanks him again, Arjul tells them to live with motivation, mentioning that he has trained many powerful fangs. Earlier, he remembers having trained formidable warriors, stating that while the process takes time, it is not a difficult task for him. However, the biggest concern of the old warrior is that he does not have much time left to carry out his plans. He clenches his teeth in frustration, realizing that his time running out quickly is a serious problem. Arjul suddenly shouts at everyone to run at full speed, his expression grim and determined. As they flee, a massive explosion of fire erupts right behind them, signaling the arrival of a new threat. A terrifying slender monster with glowing red eyes and blade-like limbs crashes from above. The whole group looks back in absolute horror, their faces pale with surprise and fear at the sight of the creature. The monster lands with a deafening crash, and the young man tells Cyrus to hold on tight as he urges everyone to run. Auric yells at Menrock, asking him what that thing is, and the rhinoceros beastman stutters that he is the cutthroat. The creature known as the Cutthroat One relentlessly pursues them through the dark and desolate corridor. The young man grits his teeth, remembering the old warrior's warning that even level 5 prisoners die easily from that thing. He realizes that this is a much bigger danger than the ogres they had before, and tells his panicked partner to just run. Arjun effortlessly lifts both the young man and Cyrus, warning that being caught by the monster means instant death. The old warrior knows that he cannot afford to lose his new allies here, and decides that he must drive the creature away. The same one. As the cutthroat man attacks again, landing right behind them, the young man screams that he can't go on much longer. Arjul points towards a narrow passage and instructs the group to head inside for temporary safety. The monster roars in frustration as he tries to keep going, but discovers that the entrance is too narrow for him to get through. The old man tells them that this is just the beginning, and instructs the eagle beastman to lead the others to the cells via a divided path. Arjul states that he will lure the creature to another place, and Auric looks back with a determined expression, understanding his role. The cutthroat begins to violently beat his sharp limbs against the narrow opening, shattering the metal wall. It becomes clear that the monster intends to break through with pure brute force, and the group panics. Just as the wall explodes, Arjul yells at them to run in the opposite direction to get the cutthroat man's attention. The rest of the group finally reaches a safe area, collapsing exhausted as Menrock asks if they really escaped. The young man suggests that they should go back and fight alongside the old warrior. But Menrock says that the hallway is full of such things. Just when the rhino beastman agrees that they can't just leave him behind, Auric firmly tells them no. He explains that the old man has been living alone in this prison for much longer than any of them can imagine. This means that he has fought countless ghosts, and they would only be a drag that he would not survive if they returned. The eagle beastman reminds them that their job is to get to the cells as quickly as possible, and the group reluctantly agrees to leave. Meanwhile, the cutthroat man taunts Arjul by offering to cut off his legs so that they no longer hurt. The monster continues his taunt by suggesting that he leave a well, but the old man asks if he hates him so much that he wants him to die. Arjul pretends not to understand by calmly asking how he could have deceived the creature. The cutthroat man roars with fury, accusing him of breaking a promise to play rock, paper, scissors more than 4 years ago. As the monster rages, the old warrior's expression turns serious. Realizing that something is wrong with this ghost, he knows that ghosts are mentally unstable. So his clear memory means that someone he knows sent him. Think of a name, Saddle. The creature seems confused by the word, repeating the name and asking what it means. Arjul remembers that Saddle was just a brat 5 years ago, and now he is surprised that he can control ghosts. A new voice speaks through the monster. Impressed that the old man noticed his hidden mark, the old warrior sneers, asking if his opponent has forgotten that his eyes do not miss anything, and revealing that he was just testing it. In a burst of red energy, a necromancer from the demon worshippers appears, confirming that his name is Saddle. Arjul claims that even after 5 years, Saddle still hasn't realized that they are on completely different levels. The necromancer taunts through the monster, declaring that it will be different this time, as he launches into the attack. However, the old man moves at a blinding speed, creating multiple afterimages of himself to effortlessly dodge the assault. The monster roars in frustration, confident that after 5 long years, he will finally be the one to defeat him. Saddle presumes that after 5 years, she has even gained the ability to control the dangerous ghosts in the hallway. He is sure that not even the old man. He can no longer escape this attack from the powerful creature under his command. The necromancer explains that the cutthroat is a grade 5 monster, a level of power that few can resist. With this ghost, he claims that he can now kill even the strongest grade 5 inmates with absolute ease. The old warrior to surrender and join his cause, offering to spare his life as a reward for his surrender. But the old man simply scoffs, dismissing the passage of 5 years as completely irrelevant to his struggle. He reveals that he has endured 60 long years in solitude, making his opponent's experience seem trivial. Algier stands firm against the monster's assault, unimpressed by the power its enemy has acquired. Calmly calls the necromancer a novice, still too inexperienced despite his new abilities. The veteran asks if Saddle really believes that his 5 years of struggle can be compared to his own 60 years of survival. Enraged by his words, Saddle yells at him to stop talking nonsense, refusing to accept the truth. In a blur of movement, Argel closes the distance and stops the monster's blade with a powerful counterattack. He tells Saddle that after all that time, the stage he has finally reached is simply a way of measuring degrees, a superficial understanding of true power. The old man follows up with a devastating punch, landing a clean blow on the cutthroat man's jaw. He tells the young necromancer that for his next lesson, he must learn to see the true essence of power. With a brutal final blow, Argel demonstrates the brute force of his experience. The monster's head explodes on impact, a clear sign of the great difference in its class. The old warrior lies quietly on the body of the defeated monster, the battle decisively won. He looks down at a bright red symbol on the creature's remains, identifying it as the mark of the phantom control. Argel lifts the monster's cut hair, declaring that it will be a message for the devil worshippers. With a decisive final blow, completely destroy the control mark by severing the necromancer's connection. Meanwhile, Rob makes his way through the dark corridor, realizing how difficult it is to navigate without his leader. Auric asks if they are on the right path, as finding their way in the confusing hallway is almost impossible on their own. Menrock worries if the old man is okay after the loud noise they heard. But the young man believes that his leader has a plan. Suddenly, Ciro sees a light ahead, and points it out to the others just as Argel appears and calls them late. The group is shocked to see him, wondering how he managed to escape the ghost and pass him by unseen. The old man dismisses their questions by telling them to quickly enter the cell since the danger has already passed. He explains that the fire-breathing dragons have finished their hunt and left the hallway, but the group is still confused. When they enter the cell, Ciro looks with horror at the scene before him, his face pale from shock. The only thing left inside the cell are the charred black corpses of the other inmates. The young man runs to Ciro's side, asking if he's okay, while the boy covers his face in anguish. The old warrior puts a comforting hand on Ciro's shoulder, telling him to accept the harsh reality of loneliness. The boy looks up with eyes full of tears, asking if the weak are simply destined to die in this place. The old man calmly tells him no, explaining that in a prison like this, anyone can die at any time. The grim scene serves as a stark reminder of what loneliness really is, a place where countless prisoners arrive and die on a daily basis. Their lives are lost regardless of their degree, personality, abilities, or connections to the outside world. In this brutal prison, the only certainty for most is that they will eventually die. That's all. Menrock watches the horrific aftermath, cursing the hell they're trapped in. He grimly points out the endless cycle of death and replacement just as roll call time approaches, announcing new arrivals. An announcement of the system declares the start of the morning roll call, revealing that only 5 of the 95 inmates have survived. Due to the extreme shortage of personnel in cell block 1257, the remaining survivor will be relocated. The group watches in shock and confusion, taken completely by their surprise at the sudden announcement. A bright golden light envelops them, and Ciro screams in panic as his partner tells him to calm down. Argel quickly warns them to listen carefully, as they may separate after the forced transfer. The inmates are separated by the powerful light, and Menrock screams surprise. Being separated by force, the old warrior gives them one last piece of advice, telling them to run towards the sea if they land in a jungle. Auric screams confused, wondering why there would even be a jungle in a high-tech prison. The transfer is completed, leaving the remains of his old one. Empty and desolate cell block. Ariel finds himself in a new cell, disappointed that everyone was separated, especially the one who thought he had potential. To his surprise, the only one who came to the new cell with him was young Zero. The old man understands that the warden's intention is clear, in a message to simply handle the goods he was given. He knows that he will meet with the warden soon enough, but until then, he plans to raise the child and take what he needs. The old warrior inspects his new surroundings, noticing that the cell is 4 times bigger and houses around 300 prisoners. A shadowy figure in the distance notices their arrival, signaling the newcomers to his companion. A group of rough-looking inmates mockingly comment on the old man and the brat being summoned. One of them suggests enslaving the two, while another comments on the child's good age, calling her the sweet spot. They look at Zero with hungry eyes, commenting that the young man is just ripe to be taken. Zero hides behind the old man, nervously pointing out that the other prisoners have strange predatory eyes. Argel calmly moves forward, telling the greedy inmates to stop right there and back off. Just then, a red-haired woman named Rosen appears with her gang, and the other inmates stutter her name in fear. She mocks Argel for acting haughtily and powerfully without an affiliation, and coldly tells him to disappear immediately. As the previous group flees, Rosen watches them leave before ordering his own men to bring the young man to him. One of his subordinates moves and grabs Zero, who screams in fear as he hides behind the old man. The boy panics, his eyes wide with terror, as he tries to resist being carried away by the big recluse. He looks back at the confused and scared old man, wondering why he is just standing there without helping him. The henchman drags Zero as the boy struggles, begging to be let go, while the man tells him to shut up. Zero's fear intensifies, his wide-open eyes show the sheer terror he feels at being to be removed from his protector. Suddenly, the inmate is struck by an invisible force, sending him stumbling forward and causing him to lose control over the child. The man is stunned, wondering what just happened, while Rosen demands to know what his subordinate just did. The red-haired leader scolds her angry bully by asking him why he can't even do his job properly. She reminds him that the child is a product entrusted to her by the warden, but the man insists that he did nothing. The henchman looks at Cyrus in complete confusion, still trying to process the sudden invisible attack. In the background, Argel observes with a calm and illegible expression. His intervention has gone unnoticed. A fierce red aura suddenly erupts from Cyrus as his body begins to transform. His features become wilder. The other inmates recoil in shock as the transformed boy now stands in front of them, ready to fight. Rosen smiles, amused by the sight, and noticing that she is even wagging her tail, deciding that he is worth raising. She orders her men to hurry up and capture the boy, but they hesitate. Now intimidated by his new form, transformed Zero lunges at the man who grabbed him, his face contorted into a ferocious growl. He hits a devastating blow that sends the big prisoner flying backwards with incredible force. Zero growls at the man, warning him to behave since he can't kill him, a promise he made to the old man. And enraged, the Secuel lunges forward to attack, but the transformed boy easily overpowers him. Another of Rosanna's subordinates rushes in, berating his comrade for being so embarrassing. He moves to hit Zero, but the boy's wild instincts get the better of him, and he easily counters the attack. The new attacker flies off, crashing into his ally, while Rosen's men prove to be unable to catch even a little brat. The executioner then turns his attention to Algiers, demanding to know what the old pussy is doing, and telling him to get lost. He raises his hand to strike, but the old man effortlessly catches his arm, stopping him in his tracks. In one fluid motion, Argel flips the big man over his shoulder by slamming him hard to the ground. He then deals a quick and decisive blow, knocking the man unconscious with a single punch. The old warrior stands over the fallen bodies, leaving Rosen and his remaining men completely stunned. The red-haired leader is impressed, his eyes fixed on the blindfolded man's demonstration of power. Argel looks down at the unconscious Cyrus, noticing that although he lost his mind, he is no match for a Class II prisoner. He thinks that the guy is not without talent, and could become much more valuable in his hands, making him worthy of raising. Rosen approaches, mocking the old man for being stunned after touching one of his children. Assuming that he is not afraid because of his age, the woman smiles menacingly, declaring that at his age, the only thing left to fear is the Grim Reaper, and she will give him one more thing to fear today. He leaks into the air, his whip crackling, as he threatens to tie him up so he can't move a muscle. The red-haired woman lands, promising to skin his flesh one slice at a time with her whip. Just as he prepares to strike, a massive figure lands between them, shouting that enough is enough. Rosen is annoyed by the flashy entrance, telling the newcomer not to get in her way, since she found the old man first. A big, muscular man with a strange symbol on his forehead is now standing in front of them, his presence intimidating. The newcomer tells Rosen that it's time to retire, but she teases by asking who he thinks he is to give her orders. The red-haired woman declares that she is always prepared for a war and that it will surely happen eventually. The big man stands his ground, declaring that if she's not backing down, then neither is he. Rosen teases him for being cunning, noting that he has her surrounded on all sides with no escape route. The man tells her not to fall for every provocation, reminding her that if they fight, it's just what Beckham wants. Defeated, she walks away with her gang, promising to make him regret this one day. The man is relieved that he has backed off for now, and the old man asks if he saved him in the jungle a year ago. The newcomer smiles, confirming that the old warrior's memory is correct, although he may have forgotten the encounter. Argel admits that he does not remember, but the man insists that he helped him that day, and has not forgotten. The old man realizes that it must have been during the liberation, where he unwittingly helped while hunting natives. The man kneels down before him, declaring that even if time has passed, the fact that he was saved does not change. He orders his own men to bow their heads, introducing the old warrior as his new big brother. The big man and his entire gang bow in respect, calling out to their new leader. Argel can only scratch his head in surprise at this sudden and unexpected turn of events. Just then, Ciro screams in pain from a nightmare, begging for it to stop. The boy stirs in his sleep, his mind still reeling from the traumatic events of the day. The big man, whose name is Morgan, watches with concern before suggesting that they continue with the briefing. He explains that they are in cell 3 year 98, and that there are currently 3 main factions inside. The first is the one that elides, known as the Axe or Morgan's Circle. The second is the Whip Witch, the Rosen Circle, the group they met a few moments ago. And the third is the user of the sword, the Beckham Circle, a group with which they have not yet met. Morgan reveals that all the circle leaders, including himself, are powerful Class 3 prisoners. These 3 circles currently hold the balance of power, and all are preparing for liberation. One looking near the cells. Algiers notes that Morgan has gotten used to solitude quite well, and the man attributes his survival to being able to form a small circle. The old man thanks him for the valuable information, and says he will rest now, and Martin offers to bring him some food. When Martin leaves, Ariel calmly eats a sprout, his expression unreadable as Hero silently watches him. The boy asks if the old man did not help him earlier because he is weak, and it is not necessary. The old man points out that Cyrus does not remember his brief awakening, and says that if he had been abandoned, they would not be together now. He then asks if the boy is afraid, and Ciro admits that he feels useless without his partner, Lucas. The young man says that he is too weak to be of any use, but the old warrior tells him that he has completely misunderstood. Argel explains that whether one is strong or weak is not for them to decide, but for the one against whom they are facing. The old man declares that he wants Ciro to survive in solitude, and is willing to help him achieve this. She offers to teach the boy how to expel the darkness in his heart and become truly strong. Ciro is stunned by the offer. Her eyes widen with a mixture of hope and disbelief at the old man's words. But before they can start, the old man tells him that he must eat first, much to the boy's confusion. The old warrior asks if Ciro knows what he is most afraid of in this desolate prison. He reveals that his greatest fear is hunger, as there is nothing more painful than starvation. Arju presents him with a bowl of bugs, explaining that one cannot become strong on an empty stomach, a reality he must accept. He tells the guy, if he really wants to become strong, he should eat no matter how disgusting the food is. With a look of pure determination, Zero declares that he too will become strong, and begins to eat the bugs. Elsewhere, a group called the Lost End Circle points out that their leader, Lady Lausna, has left to do her regular debrief. In a darkened chamber, a figure dressed in a robe bows before a glowing red orb reporting on its progress. He confirms that they have collected about half of the live specimens, and believes that the next phase will be completed on time. The voice of the orb asks if anything unusual has happened, and she says no, although the elderly and children were moved. The orb dismisses his concerns, but then asks for more details about the elderly inmates. The woman remembers that her eyes had a mysterious light, and moved towards the chaos, as if they were attracted by it. The voice asks if this is true, and she confirms that there is no mistake, wondering who it could be. A fire dragon entity emerges from the orb, declaring that he will go there personally to investigate. The woman is shocked by this decision, but offers to capture the old man for her master before he arrives. The leader of the demons agrees by giving him permission to duel as he pleases with the prisoner. With the authority granted to her, the woman hopes to capture the powerful old man. Now, back in her usual outfit, the red-haired woman is committed to capturing everyone, all the prey his master desires, and present them to him. Back in the cell, Argel and Zero sit opposite each other, meditating and channeling their inner energy. They sit in quiet concentration, the atmosphere calm and focused as their training begins. The old man tells the boy that it's time to start by instructing him to close his eyes and breathe slowly. Zero follows his instructions, determined to become stronger and survive the horrors of the prison. Argel explains that fists and techniques are meaningless, since what he has to learn is something much more fundamental. The old man tells him to take a deep breath in and exhale slowly, focusing on the darkness covering his vision. As he does so, a wave of energy appears, a sign of his increasing control over his inner being. The old warrior explains that now they will enter his inner being, and his spiritual form floats out of his body. The old man's spirit watches over Cyrus, instructing him to keep his breathing steady and slow. At his command, the boy opens his eyes and finds himself in a strange, dark and unfamiliar place. He calls to the old man, confused and scared, as he looks around in the void. The old man's voice reassures him by telling him to calm down, as he is right there with him. He reveals that this strange place is the inside of Cyrus' own mind, his inner self. Argel explains that to become strong, he must first face the darkness inside his heart, and tells him to step forward. When Zero takes that first step, he is suddenly enveloped in a warm and bright light, a vision of his past. He sees a happy memory of his family, his younger self held lovingly in his mother's arms. Tears are streaming down his face as he is overwhelmed by the powerful emotions of this long-lost memory. The old man's voice gently tells him that enough is enough, and instructs him not to look further down. He tells Zero to focus on his voice and exhale slowly, and the guy does his best to follow the command. But the vision is too powerful, and his consciousness begins to fade as he is dragged deeply in the memory. Zero gasps for air, his wild instincts taking over as he struggles to free himself from the overwhelming vision. Back in the real world, Arju praises him for doing well in his first time facing the inner darkness. He reminds the boy to never forget what he is, because the blood he carries is part of him. Zero looks at his transformed hands, and the old man tells him that this blood will become his greatest weapon. With the training session over, Algiers decides it's time for lunch, and the boy agrees. Just then, Morgan arrives with roasted monster meat, offering it to him as a token of his gratitude. Sorrow notices that Morgan's men are not eating, and asks if he is okay, but the old man tells him not to worry. Elsewhere, Rosen and his gang confront Morgan's men, demanding that they hand over whatever they have. Morgan's man tells him not to act like he's all yours, but Rosen mocks him for suddenly acting like a nice guy. She looks past him with a sinister smile, surprised to see that he is still alive after their last meeting. He reluctantly hands over his findings, understanding that he has no choice but to comply with their demands. Another of Morgan's men brings the bodies of the fallen, adding them to the pile. He explains that one of the bodies belongs to a member of the circle who died in the hallway the day before. Zero is horrified to realize that they are exchanging corpses for food, and the old man confirms that they eat them too. The old warrior darkly explains that this kind of thing often happens in the brutal reality of loneliness. While the other inmates celebrate their disgusting living room, Zero is overcome by nausea and bonita the meat he just ate. Morgan tells his boss to rest, as he and his men are also heading back for lunch. As they leave with their gloomy meal, Algiers watches with a thoughtful expression, feeling that they took the brunt of it. He turns to Cito, telling him to eat all the monster and insect meat he wants, but to never become like those people. Elsewhere, another group of inmates brags of his latest killing spree, mocking his victims' pleas for life. They agree with their leader Beckham that the first-class prisoners are garbage who can't even defend themselves properly. Just then, the man Beckham himself arrives with his own circle. His presence inspires respect and fear. He approaches Morgan and his group, who are surprised to see the leader of the third faction. The two leaders stand face to face, the tension in the air thick with unspoken rivalry and suspicion. One of Morgan's men is surprised that Beckham is willing to share food and booty, as their circles are on bad terms. The man explains that this is not always the case, as Beckham never starts fights, preferring to keep everyone under his control. He then reveals that the other leader wants to talk to his boss, and asks if they should go together. The old man tells Ciro to come back alone, while he goes to meet with Beckham, but the boy hesitates. Ciro sits with his guards who complain about being stuck babysitting a brat, while everyone else is at Beckham's party. One of them looks at the guy with hungry eyes, commenting that his meat should be nice and tender. The other warns her to stop drooling, reminding her that if her captain finds out, her own meat will end up on Rosanna's plate. Ciro is left alone with his dark thoughts, wondering if he will ever be able to be as strong as the old man in a place like this. He remembers his previous conversation with the old man who asked him if it was the first time he had seen someone truly strong. The boy had anxiously confirmed, even asking if the old warrior wasn't human because of his incredible power. Argel had simply stated that he was human, but Cyrus pressed further, asking if he could use energy or mana. The old man had explained that while he couldn't use mana, he could control energy to a certain extent. Cyrus, full of curiosity, had enthusiastically told him that he had many more questions to ask. He had asked about the old man's age, and Argel simply replied that he was 88 years old. When asked about hobbies, he said he didn't have any, but would take walks down the hall when he couldn't sleep. Then the boy asked if he had any friends, and the old man replied that some were cold on the outside, but warm on the inside, and one even looked like a bear. Finally, Ciro had asked the most difficult question of all, why? That I had come to Solitude in the first place. A grim silence had fallen between them, a bloody image flashing in the old warrior's mind. He had simply stated that his wife died, a truly beautiful woman who was always smiling, before saving the rest for another time. Back in the present, Ciro is startled by a sudden noise, his eyes moving in alarm. He feels danger approaching, his instincts on high alert, as he prepares for a possible attack. A whip crackles in the air, and Ciro finds himself surrounded by Rosen and his gang. The boy flies out by the force of the attack, crashing hard into the unforgiving prison floor. Rosen looks at him with a predatory smile on his face as he asks where the old man they are looking for is. She mockingly calls him a little puppy, and the boy panics, his mind racing as he tries to figure out what to do. He realizes with a jolt of terror that the old man is not here to protect him, leaving him completely alone and vulnerable. With a demonic smile, the woman beckons him to come closer, and the guy desperately tries to find a way to survive this new threat. Ciro clenches his teeth, enduring the painful lash of a whip as he flies backwards by force. The red-haired woman comments on her amazing stamina, wondering what changed since her panic attack the day before. Terrified, the boy begs her to stop, warning that something terrible will happen if she puts a hand on him again. Rosen mocks his words by asking if he is a threat, and taunting him to hurry up as he is getting bored. She encourages him to bark, and a red aura erupts around Ciro as his body begins to transform once more. With a sinister smile, he mentions being sad lately because all his other pets have been dying one by one. Then he swings his whip again in the hope that this new pet will be able to resist a little longer than the others. The whip is tightly wound around the young man's ankle, completely trapping him. The woman jerks him up, sending him flying across the floor of the cell with a powerful pull of her whip. He rises through the air completely helpless, while Rosen stands below in the middle of a fiery and intimidating aura. She pins the defeated boy to the ground with her foot, wondering when the old man will finally make his move. Meanwhile, Algiers sits with Morgan and Beckham around a meal, finding the whole situation interesting. Beckham points out that the old man came to this cell right after hunting in the corridors, and then asks him a question. The user of the sword points out that there is no class number written on Algiers' neck like other prisoners. The old man explains that it's been a while, but at first, the prison didn't assign any class numbers. Morgan comments on how strong he must be, but Argel dismisses his past exploits as ancient history. The three powerful inmates continue their quiet reunion amidst the desolate metal landscape of the prison. Beckham reflects on the old man's story, noting that this is the first time he has seen a survivor without a class number. He remembers the story of fighting alone against the natives of the jungle, and his expression suddenly becomes serious. An intense twinkle appears in his eyes when he decides that he should test the mysterious old man's strength for himself. Morgan shudders, wondering what that sudden chill was, and blaming it on not having eaten well lately. The old man then excuses himself to leave, and Beckham asks why he is leaving so soon without even eating. Algiers explains that he has a son to take care of, but he will take the monster meat with him as he drives away. Beckham thinks to himself that, although Morgan did not feel it, the old man did not show any reaction to his murderous intention. The sword user watches him leave, his expression serious as he swears to remember Argel's name. Meanwhile, Sarah is already chained up and defeated on the floor, while one of Rosen's men congratulates her. The red-haired woman smiles with joy, her minions praising the new pet as perfect for their taste. The guy remains motionless, his body hurts too much even to make a sound, while he wonders how much he will struggle. He thinks that if he just acts like a pet, it might not hurt so much, and he might see his brother again one day. Suddenly, one of her men runs in and she angrily asks if he wants to be killed for being so loud. The man nervously reports that the old man has appeared, causing a spark of hope to ignite in Ciro's eyes. The sequester Tamudia, trying to explain that there is a big problem with his unexpected visitor. With a terrified expression, he reveals that the old warrior is not alone. The woman is surprised to see Argel standing before her, backed by the full force of the other two circles. Martin yells at Rosen from the crowd, telling him that he doesn't seem to value his life. She calls him a parasite and dares him to attack if he is so sure, but he becomes enraged by her disrespect. The old man tells his ally to calm down, stating that he will talk to the woman directly. He stands alone in the open area, looking at her and demanding that she return his friend to him. Rosen refuses, stating that the boy is hers since she caught him, and blaming Algiers for not protecting him. The old warrior finds his reasoning completely absurd, his expression hardening in the face of his twisted logic. Algiers tells the woman that he doesn't understand the guy's true value by using him just to get her attention. With a gloomy expression, the old warrior warns her that having that child with her means that she will surely die. Rosen scoffs at his confident threat that only someone like Martin would fall for such an obvious deception. Enraged, Martin offers to rescue the child and bring the woman's head to him, but Algiers tells him that it is not necessary. The big man is completely confused, while his older brother just turns around and starts walking away with the group. The old man explains that there is no problem in recovering Ciro slowly because he will not be killed. In fact, he clarifies that they shouldn't even be able to kill the kid in the first place. He knows that the goods will be kept safe since the warden himself is monitoring the situation. As the group is leaving, Argel stops for a moment, lost in his thoughts in the middle of the great hall. He finds himself alone in a long, quiet hallway, thinking about the recent turn of events. The old warrior comments that it has been quite a while since he and a certain person have met. A mysterious dark-haired figure appears, asking if he has any friends, and he admits that he has some cold but warm ones. He points out that she must have seen him in passing, identifying her as one of his few friends. A beautiful woman named Cress materializes before him, surrounded by a bright light blue aura. She explains that the atmosphere was too intense to ignore, so she came to say hello and check on her health. The old man admits that he is worried since the time he has been given does not seem to be very long. Chris offers to clean up the problematic items in the cell, pointing out the presence of several demon worshippers. However, Algiers rejects his offer, worried that their merchandise may get caught in the crossfire and die. The woman smiles warmly, mentioning that she is going to see her sister and asking her to give her greetings. He then hugs the old warrior, telling him to let him know if he needs anything, as he is his benefactor. While he disappears, the old warrior is left floating in a sea of blue energy, immersed in his thoughts. He reflects that no matter his current situation, he cannot go so far as to borrow the help of a small child. Standing alone in a dark high-tech hallway, he admits to himself that he has grown old. His bonds crackle with electricity as he realizes that he can no longer solve everything head-on like he used to. However, as a lightning bolt travels through his hand, he knows that what he needs to do is not completely impossible. He realizes that there is no need to retain his strength, while the bodies of his fallen enemies lie around him. With a surge of power, lightning crackles around his single-coiled blade, ready for action. Argel unleashes his power, his form a whirlwind of blue energy, as he prepares for the coming battle. Meanwhile, Rosen walks down a dark metal corridor, his thoughts drifting to his own past. She remembers that she was once just an ordinary Class 3 prisoner, her arm bleeding from a recent injury. He had been just another face in the crowd, struggling to survive in the brutal prison. That all changed when he met that person, a massive, intimidating figure with immense power. She had been so overwhelmed by his presence that she instinctively knelt at his feet, unable even to make eye contact. It was that person's authority that allowed him to rise to his current position of power within the prison. One of her men calls her, waking her up from a deep sleep, and she asks Groggy what he wants. The man nervously apologizes, but insists that he needs to confirm something immediately. She threatens to send him flying if it's nothing important, but he urgently tells her that all his boys have been eliminated. He explains that when they woke up, everyone was already dead, and the red-haired leader is completely stunned. She asks what she is talking about, knowing that everyone wakes up at the same time because of the anti-Eston system. With a look of increasing horror, he realizes that a surprise attack while they were sleeping should be impossible. He finds himself facing the grim aftermath, realizing that out of 100 of his men, 40 are now dead. One of his subordinates points out that they were all killed with a weapon sharp as an awl that he had never seen before. A dark thought crosses his mind as he connects the unique weapon to a certain old man. He furiously runs out in search of the child, demanding to know where that brat is. Convinced that this is the work of Jesus, she looks at the remains of the boy's bonds. With a look of pure determination, he gathers his remaining men and declares that it is time to start the house. Meanwhile, Sarah wakes up to find herself safely with Argel, who asks her if her consciousness has returned. The boy lowers his head in shame, realizing that the old man has saved him once again. He tells the old man that after everything he has been through, he finally understands that he must protect himself. The young boy clenches his fists, a new resolution burning inside him as he addresses the old warrior. With determined eyes, he declares that he wants to become more strong no matter what it takes. Just then, Morgan arrives, asking why the boy is there and reminding his older brother that it's time for the roll call. The old man explains that he brought the boy and that the three of them have something important to discuss. Rosen and his large group march through the prison, their anger and determination clear on their faces. They arrive at the common area and see that the other two circles are already gathered. Algiers is waiting for them, standing with Beckham and Morgan, the three leaders, ready for the inevitable confrontation. The redhead screams at the fucking old man to come out and face her, her voice full of rage. She tells Morgan to shut up, stating that her only business is with the old man who messed with her. She accuses him of eliminating his subordinates and kidnapping her child, with the anger reaching its peak. The old man looks at her calmly and asks if he should also kill her and put her on the table for dinner. Argel calls her loud for not understanding the situation, but she demands to know what he just said. With a stern expression, she simply repeats that she is loud, and her voice cuts through the tension. The redhead is trembling with rage, unable to give a coherent response to his calm contempt. The old man turns to the other two leaders and asks them what they think of the proposal he has just made. Morgan quickly agrees, saying that it is his older brother's proposal and very welcome to his circle. Beckham also agrees, noting that while there may be casualties, The potential payoff is worth it. The old man turns to the confused Rosen and explains that he was making a proposal to the other two circles. Calmly, he suggests that since 40 of his men are already dead, they should have a feast and capture the remaining 60 as slaves. The redhead is completely stunned by his bold proposal, and her mind is reeling at the implications. A cold sweat runs down his face as he realizes the terrible reality of his situation. Each of the 3 circles had 100 members, maintaining a delicate balance of power. But now, thanks to the actions of the old Jesus, many of his forces are dead, and the balance has been broken. The new alliance now has a combined strength of 200, while their circle is left with only 60. He realizes that this creates a power gap too big to handle, and a reflection of his defeat appears in his eye. An overwhelming sense of fear rushes in as he looks at the huge army that is now against him. His mind goes blank, unable to think of any possible way to escape this desperate situation. He knows there is no way to win against forces 3 times the size of his own. As the huge army charges forward, Arjul leads the attack, his form a blur of red-hot fury. The 2 sides face off in a brutal and bloody battle, and the sounds of the struggle resonate throughout the prison. Rosanna's forces are quickly overcome, their bodies shattered by the sheer number of her opponents. Rosanna struggles desperately, waving her whip in a bloody frenzy as she is completely surrounded and overcome. In the chaotic fray, a sharp blade finds its mark through the redhead's chest. She is quickly assaulted and stabbed from all sides, her body falling in the middle of the incessant assault. Arjul watches the gloomy scene from a distance, calmly commenting that he had already warned him of this fate. After the battle, he enters a hidden chamber and finds a strange altar with a glowing red orb, a clear sign of the demon worshippers. He picks up the object, identifying it as a life force orb, and pointing out that they have been gradually collecting them. While holding the orb, a powerful red energy emanates from the altar, completely enveloping it. The old man seems annoyed to realize that being involved in such troublesome matters will probably delay his meeting with the warden. He then speaks to the orb by calling someone named Darkus and asking if he is listening. Arjul recalls his previous encounter with Saddle, who was linked to a ghost, and mentions that he has broken that connection. He warns Darkus to stop pursuing him, telling the demon worshipper that he will regret it if he continues. A new deep voice suddenly speaks from the altar, dismissing the old warrior's words as boring talk. The huge demonic figure of darkness appears, mocking Arjul and asking him if he is afraid. The old man replies, asking if he looks like someone who would be afraid of him, and starts crushing the life force orb in his hand. With a decisive final squeeze, he shatters the orb, warning that if the darkness pursues him, he will die without fail. In another place, in a luxurious room, a man with long hair and red eyes is sitting quietly drinking from an elegant chalice. This powerful figure is revealed to be the Vampire King Endurus, a terrifying and high-ranking Class S8 prisoner. When someone tries to get close, the Vampire King angrily tells them to get lost by threatening to kill everyone in the room. Suddenly, Darkus appears before him, calmly stating that he has something he needs to discuss with him. In Hard, the demon commander, also a Class 8 prisoner, reveals that he has a proposal for the Vampire King. The Vampire King calmly sips his drink, commenting that, as always, the demon commander has no sense of manners. Darkus reminds him that both serve constancy of the void and insists that the proposal is also good for him. The huge demon commander then makes his request, asking for help to capture the old warrior, Arjul. However, Endura flatly refuses, stating that there is no true master or disciple relationship between black magic users. He advises the demon to give up, stating that the old man is completely out of his reach, which angers Darkus. The commander warns the Vampire King that there will come a time when he will regret having made this decision. With a menacing, toothy smile, Darkus declares that he will simply capture Arjul by himself. The Vampire King simply smiles back at her sarcastically, wishing her the best of luck with her silly venture. Darkus then disappears in a whirlwind of dark energy, leaving the luxurious room in a sudden silence. Endura mocks the demon's arrogance by calling him an insolent brat who still doesn't understand his own position. He reflects that any prisoner who rises through the ranks in Solitude eventually learns the name of Argel Rastos. The Vampire King wonders to himself how a mere human has managed to survive in this hellish prison for decades. Meanwhile, the new alliance celebrates their victory with a huge feast, roaring about finally being able to eat. While the allied circles each lost 20 men, Rosna's circle suffered an additional 30 deaths, including their own. One of Beckham's men reports that the rest of the defeated inmates have been tied up and put in storage. Morgan raises his food in a toast, thanking his older brother for helping them get rid of the arrogant Rosna. Beckham watches the old man drink blood like water, and Algiers simply comments that it's not bad. The old warrior refuses the offer of meat, explaining that he has no appetite after moving so much. Beacon is impressed by the man's power and formally asks him if he would be willing to join his circle. Margot then reveals her plan to unite the lower-class prisoners to fight the middle-class inmates at the next release. However, Algiers calmly rejects the proposal, his expression unreadable as he looks at Beckham. The sword user asks why, and the old man explains that he is too old for such grandiose things and will support him instead. She then turns to Morgan and clarifies that she has no intention of joining his circle either, much to his surprise. Beckham asks if he will not come with them, but Argel simply apologizes, saying that he is busy taking care of a child. The two powerful leaders can only look at him confused, wondering why he would be taking care of a child. 6 days later, the old warrior and Ciro are back in their training, and it's time for the boy to enter his inner being again. Ciro asks why he has to walk through his memories, and the old man explains that it is to find out what he really wants. With that, they begin their meditation, sitting with their legs crossed in silent concentration. The boy finds himself back in the dark watery expanse of his own mind, a familiar but unsettling place. Remember that this is your 8th time entering into your inner being, and this time, you should try to walk forward continuously. Remember that all of Argel's training has been focused on inner cultivation, forcing him to face painful memories. As he walks, he is bombarded with visions of his past, his mother begging him to come back, while his father blocks the door. The boy realizes that he would rather be beaten and feel physical pain than relive these traumatic experiences. He sees memories of being separated from his loved ones, his house being destroyed by huge war machines. But he forces himself to move on, trusting that the old man has a reason to make him do this. The old man's voice echoes in his mind, reminding him to never look down when he is in the dark. With a new resolve, the boy nods, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination, as he thinks about the old man. He continues his long and arduous path through the dark void, overcoming pain and memories. After what seems like an eternity, he reaches the edge of a precipice, a dead end with nowhere else to go. Just then, the old man's voice orders him to continue if he really wants to become strong, leaving the boy terrified. Sweat runs down his face as he admits that he is afraid, but he knows that he must become strong. He takes a deep breath, determined not to lose any more valuable people in his life. With a renewed sense of purpose, he throws himself off the cliff, reminding himself that he'll be fine as long as he doesn't look down. But as he falls, his eyes widen with terror as he realizes that he is not alone in the dark abyss. Something is there at his feet, a whirlwind of dark purple energy that seems to be calling him. A voice echoes out of the darkness, greeting him after what has been a long time. The voice expresses his sadness that she has not called him until now, and the boy realizes that she is talking to him. He nervously tries to answer, but the voice asks if he can hear her, or if she's ignoring him again. The dark entity blames him for the suffering of his people, and the boy is stunned by the accusation. He claims that if he had not been so selfish, his people would not have died and suffered because of him. A huge demonic creature with multiple eyes emerges from the darkness. His presence is overwhelming and terrifying. The boy struggles to breathe, the immense pressure crushing him as he pleads for the pain to stop. Her eyes widen with pure terror, the psychic assault becoming too much to bear. He lets out one last agonizing scream as the darkness threatens to consume him completely. Just as he is about to be dragged into the abyss, a hand reaches out and grabs him, pulling him back to safety. His body transforms, his features become wilder as he clenches his teeth against the overwhelming pain. Back in the real world, the boy collapses on the floor, while the old man stands over him, The final intense training session. It's finally over. Arjul congratulates him, with a small smile on his face, as he looks at the exhausted but transformed boy. Ciro looks at his own body, surprised to see that he has become bigger and more powerful, after facing the inner darkness. The old warrior looks up with a serious expression, feeling that the time for your next challenge has finally arrived. The old man tells the boy to follow him, by promising to teach him what he really wants. Ciro is confused, his mind still reeling from the intense training, as he wonders what it is he wishes for. Arju looks at him with a serious proposed expression, starting to teach him how to fight. He then floats in the air, his body weightless, as he prepares for his first combat lesson. The boy is shocked when a fist flies towards his face, his mind struggling to process the sudden attack. But his instincts kick in, and he manages to dodge the blow, surprised by his own results, newly discovered. However, the old man is relentless and connects a powerful blow that sends the young man backwards. He lands hard on the ground, and Arjul explains that to be skilled in combat, several methods are necessary. The first and most important is to learn to fight with pure instinct, unadulterated. The two collide in a flurry of punches, the old man pushing his new student to his absolute limits. He tells the guy to extract the wild instincts from within and use them to their fullest potential. The old warrior points out that while the Dachiso power is good, his moves are too much obvious and easy to predict. Easily counter the guy's attack by sending him flying once again with a well-placed punch. Arju tells him to stop thinking and just follow his impulses, embracing his wild nature. He urges the guy to struggle with the feeling that he will crush everything in his path, releases, waiting for his true power. As their intense combat continues, the boy's attacks become faster, more fluid, and much more unpredictable. The old man notices that the attacks of his students are no longer focused only on his head, but have spread to his entire body. He notices that the guy has started using pure intuition instead of his head, a sign of his growing talent. Arjul is impressed, admitting that being able to immediately put his teachings into practice is a rare gift. The two continue their intense training, the sounds of their battle echoing through the desolate prison. The old man then reveals the second method to become skilled in combat. He connects another powerful blow, sending the boy flying backwards in an explosion of fiery energy. Arjul explains that there is a dimensional difference between those who have tasted suffering and those who have not. He continues his relentless assault, forcing your student to endure the pain and push their limits. The young man struggles to defend himself, his body bruised and contused from the intense training. Finally, he collapses on the floor, completely exhausted and unable to move another muscle. A warm orange glow begins to emanate from his body, surrounding him in a fiery aura. The old man watches with a thoughtful expression, wondering if the boy will be able to return to his normal state. The burning energy intensifies, consuming the boy's body as the transformation reaches its peak. Arjul kneels down beside him, deciding that the third method will have to wait for another time. He looks at the unconscious boy, wondering how much he will be able to grow from this moment on. While the boy sleeps, the old warrior admits to himself that he is looking forward to seeing the progress of his students. Cyrus finds himself in a dream, a vision of an old memory of his self, younger, running to his mother. He sees himself fishing with his father, a peaceful and happy moment from a long time ago. The dream then changes, and he remembers a time when his father always favored his older brother. He remembers the feeling of being unloved, watching his father and brother walk away without him. The young man finds himself alone in the darkness, the weight of his sad memories oppressing him. Tears run down her face as she realizes that all she wants is to see her father again. Back in the real world, he wakes up and finds himself sitting next to Arhel, who notices his quick recovery. The old man explains that they are on the roof of a building and tells him to concentrate on the prisoners below. The boy uses his newly enhanced senses, his eyes shining as he looks at the prisoners below. He wonders why everyone is sleeping, and the old man confirms that it is now bedtime for the inmates. Arju then asks his young student how he feels about having overcome prisons without a standing system. He explains that only those who have really faced the darkness within themselves can overcome the prison regulations. The young man looks at his hands in amazement, wondering if he too can now be like the old man. The old man silently observes that the commodity is growing much faster than he had originally anticipated. He thinks that the boy's growth means that he should be interchangeable with the medicine necessary to maintain his own body. The old warrior clutches his chest, knowing that his weakened body has overused its strength for too long. Think of all the recent problems like the necromancer saddle and the whip woman scratches. He also recalls his recent encounter with the powerful commander of the demon worship sect, Darkus. The old man concludes that meeting the dangerous people he has avoided for so long was probably inevitable. Elsewhere, an inmate carefully polishes his large blade, preparing for the upcoming event. Other prisoners are also getting ready, with a leader telling them not to let their guard down. Morgan reflects on his 3 years of survival, feeling that he has now understood the intuition necessary for this day. He is ready and determined, vowing to skillfully overcome the next challenge once again. Ciro notices that everyone seems busy, and the old man confirms that today is the day of liberation. The old warrior explains that it is a system designed for prisoners to anticipate it, and many will die today. Suddenly, they both look up, a strange and unexpected phenomenon that takes them completely off guard. Ciro recognizes the roll call light, and the old man notices that the release is starting earlier than expected. An announcement of the system states that the release begins now when a large glowing portal appears in the air. Ariel and Ciro look up as a massive high-tech structure materializes in the sky, bathing them in a bright and colorful light. An imposing golden hexagonal energy pillar erupts from the ground, identified as Lower Corridor 8972. The other prisoners are enveloped in the intense light. Their faces show a mixture of surprise and confusion as the event unfolds. The old man explains that this is the Creeless, a system that forces all inmates to leave their cells and enter the corridors. He warns that corridors are dangerous places full of monsters, but they also present a great opportunity. Argel then senses a new threat approaching and tells Cirrus to get ready as the first wave of enemies arrives. A group of small goblin-like creatures armed with sharp daggers suddenly charge towards them from the light. A massive horde of creatures erupts from the portal, their high-pitched squeals filling the entire area. The young man is completely overwhelmed by the large number of monsters charging directly at them. The old warrior calmly tells his student to get ready, as today they will finally experience the real combat.